Happy Thursday. I have NeuroCoffee in hand and it is perfect. Well, good morning. Welcome to the call.
I have a young patient, currently a senior in high school. He's a lefty, and he's got probably the largest Q angle I've ever seen. And he is sent to me status post UCL repair. And he's a narrow, and I already know, even though he's still in a brace, I know that he's going to be pronation biased. So I wanted to ask Bill the mechanisms that create the UCL with a presentation like that.
The mechanism that probably created the injury tends to be actually the ER and then the prolonged supination during the throw.
Yes.
And what you'll notice is, like, even though he's oriented into pronation at rest, he probably shows a limitation in pronation.
Yes.
And what you want to do is actually take a look at how much pronation he's got proximally relative to the wrist. So when you grab his wrist and you turn him over into pronation, you go, oh, he's limited. It's like, get a little bit more proximal and see how far you can bring the radius over into pronation, and then compare it to the other side. Because chances are he's got a radius that's bent. And then if you look, was it the picture that you sent me?
Yeah, that's his carry angle.
Okay. Because if you look at his hand, he's gonna fail the Apple test, because he's definitely got a hand that's also in relative pronation to the distal radius. So he's really cranking over into pronation rather aggressively because he can't access the position without a compensatory strategy.
Wondering about taping somebody like this, like your twisted femur tibia.
Yeah, you can. Why not? Why not? Absolutely, absolutely. Just to kind of teach him to feel the orientation a little bit differently, And he's not walking on his hands or anything like that. But like I said, to teach him some of that, to reorient the elbow, changing it.
Oh yeah, we're doing real well with that. He's ahead of schedule.
Okay, but you can start to retrain the distal stuff right now.
Yeah, I started with your interossei mold.
Yeah, so you start there, and then there's a lot of stuff that you can be doing. It's like
seated UDR.
Yeah, when he's when they're in the protective phase, it's like people don't recognize all this other stuff that you could be doing that is supportive. Like, people coming off a rotator cuff repair or something like that, when they're in the protective phase, people think that oh, you just do like this little bit of passive range of motion or whatever, and then that's all you can do. It's like, hey, you got like 3 other limbs there that are going to be influencing the capacity of the body to be moving around volumes and pressures and changing shapes and stuff. It's like, and all that was an influence that probably perpetuated the need for the repair in the first place. So again, you always evaluate the person, not the diagnosis. So my concern here, and again, you look at his radius, and if you measure the pronation just from the wrist, and that's your representation of pronation, I don't know that's going to be terribly accurate, because it's going to be limited, but I think it's limited by the fact that you've actually got a twist in the radius itself.
Sure, I see it now.
But again, it's like every time you see an adaptation that you perceive as favorable, recognize the fact that something else had to change for that to occur too, right? And so if I direct resources towards an adaptation, that means that something else is sacrificed. And it might not be impactful at all. But then again, maybe it is. And so this is why we always evaluate the human and not a body part or not a single representation or adaptation. We have to look at them as a whole all the time.
Bill, I was kind of thinking about this yesterday. I'm gonna go like back to basics. So you get counternutation of the sacrum, and you get a retroversion of the acetabulum.
Mhm.
If the femur stays fixed, when you get a concentric orientation of musculars on the front or in front of the trochanter and eccentric orientation of muscular behind it, and then wouldn't that set up a better environment for internal rotation as opposed to external rotation?
So you're weight bearing through the extremity?
Yeah, so lay just standing, take a breath, counternutation, and then you get a ER of the ilium. Wouldn't that create like a concentric orientation on the front and then eccentric orientation on the back? And then fluid shift would be able to go backwards.
So the expansion within the pelvis AP would do what to the issue?
The expansion AP to the pelvis would do what to the ischium? So I'm thinking like pubis being pushed forward.
The dominant is moving as a single unit.
Oh.
You get this solid representation of the ilium, right?
Right.
And so everybody sees this, and they go, well, if the ilium moves, then this moves in opposition.
Right.
Yeah. So again, so this is a faulty model that misguides decision making, right? Because again, if you look at that's why it's so important to look at the iterations. I love that expression that you always give me, the eye roll and the head tilt. That's like the best. That's the best. Like, oh, I recognize what's going on because I need to have this compressive expansion strategy. But now think about this. So if we compare a bone to a muscle, and then you think about if I was to construct these two things but make them rubber bands, right? It would be really hard to deform the bony rubber band versus the muscle rubber band. But if I could deform it, the amount of energy that it would release relative to the muscle rubber band would be huge. And it is. Like, so when you run and you bounce across the ground, that's your skeleton.
Yeah.
Your skeleton's producing a heck of a lot of that force.
Yeah. And those changes that you get in probably rotation due to compensations, that's probably, for bone takes many, many, many years, whereas muscle you can, no. How long does it take?
I don't know. We had a girl that made a pretty significant change in about 4 weeks. If you break a bone, Michelle, how long does it take to heal?
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
It doesn't take that long, right? You just need enough stress over time. Okay, so let me ask you this. So I got braces on, right? You can move a tooth pretty darn fast.
That's very true, yeah.
So when you look at a dry cadaver as a representation of human behavior, that's a misrepresentation that is in a normal dynamic human. Right? So again, it just gets misrepresented as to what is possible.